Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and are you still playing Battlefield 5 in mid-2020 like I am? If so, then congrats on being one of the final 35 people doing so. Now, I mean, that's obviously an exaggeration, but there's not that many people left. But I decided it's time to update my list of my best guns. That's the focus today, what I personally find to be the best weapon for every class at this point in time. It's just my opinion, designed to entertain you, help some of you out, and give you all the opportunity to post below in the comments what your list is so we can see all the different preferences out there. I last did one of these videos at the start of 2020 and I did some before that. My selection changes as the game alters, TTK is changed, weapons are added, and my overall likes and dislikes shift. So if we do this again at the end of 2020, it may well be totally different again, but for now, these are my best guns in BF5. We'll start off with the assault class, obviously, and I've gone for the Carabin 1938M. Been in the game for quite some time now, and what I want you to do while you're watching is notice the stability in the footage. Just how level it stays, how easily I can take people down. It has super easy to control recoil, and it's just a bit of a laser beam really. So it's one of those where you need to ignore the in-game stat bar for control being less than halfway full, because it's just misleading if we're honest. Games that have basic stat bars denoting things for entirely different kinds of weapons across the board obviously isn't going to be a great measure. So if you don't really know what you're looking for, it may look like the stability of the Carabin or indeed all semi-auto rifles isn't that great, but this thing just kind of stays straight. With just that little bit of recoil control, you're going to beam people. So the ease of use is just way off the charts, and therefore I think it's a criminally underused weapon. For me, it's now so good that it superseded my long-term favorites of the AGM/42 and the Braider in semi-auto fire mode. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know how much I've loved those guns, but if I had to choose one assault weapon for the next, say, 6 months, it would be the Carabin, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, I still use the Braider and the AGM/42, they're both still absolutely excellent weapons, but the Carabin is so consistent and just makes playing extremely simple. So it fires at 300 rounds per minute, the same as the Gewehr 43, but I find the Carabin easier to use. This rate of fire is a bit slower than some of the very popular choices out there, but honestly, I feel like it hits that nice middle ground of not being too slow, but also not so fast that spamming the trigger can start to affect your accuracy. Again, that stability is massive for the Carabin. And to be fair, 300 rounds per minute is still like 5 rounds per second to reach optimal DPS, which isn't exactly slow, and more importantly, you get to combine all of that with a 3-bullet body shot kill all the way out to 99 meters, which is where that consistency really comes in. This is part of the reason why my recon usage has dipped massively in recent times. In this build of the game, semi-autos are so good that I just don't get much out of using self-loading rifles most of the time with the recon class, but more on that later. Now with the Carabin, you'll be utilizing 10 rounds per reload, and my choice of setup for the Carabin is designed around faster, more versatile and reactionary play. So I take quick aim, custom stock and lightened stock for better movement abilities and recoil buffer to really play into the gun's stability strength. It's super good, and all of that is why the Carabin is my choice for the best assault weapon in BF5 in mid-2020. Next, we come to the medic class, and I've selected the Type 100. This gun had its brief time in the sun as the super popular choice for medic when it first released, but has kind of fallen by the wayside for many by this point. Still being used, but not en masse like previously. Now, I was never a massive user of it when everyone else was. I came to it later and started to appreciate it, but now it's my go-to because for me, it mixes everything I want out of an SMG. It's not the best option for any one individual thing, more so it just does everything very well. Not as fast firing as the Type 2A or as stable as something like the Sten or whatever, but it fires at 720 rounds per minute, has a 30 round magazine, comes with a bipod, can have great hip fire with the right specialization choices, and still feels pretty stable. So it just ticks all of my boxes. Now it does a little less damage per bullet than most other SMGs because it needs to be balanced somehow, but it more than holds its own for me due to its sheer versatility, while still having a timed kill that allows me to compete with the other fast firing options. And it's a potentially faster timed kill if you consider it landing bullets more reliably due to better stability on offer, especially with that bipod. Now I can't advise you on the spec tree for this one as I changed it up quite a lot, which also shows how effective it can be regardless of your choices, and it makes it flexible for any given situation. Give it a try if you haven't for a while, it's totally worth it, and it's my choice for the best best medic weapon in BF5 in mid-2020. Next up we have support, and I've gone for the not at all surprising choice, the Lewis gun. It just does what I feel an LMG should do, something rare in BF5 because MMGs basically did away with that due to them needing to be somehow differentiated from LMGs. The Lewis gun has a lot of rounds, is therefore great for prolonged fire, for suppression, for filling the kill feed, all of that traditional LMG stuff, but all while not having to be prone or stationary, while having versatility and offering you the opportunity to either be aggressive or passive. Now it can be a little unwieldy for some, but practice really does make perfect. Go and nail that recoil control. I personally also play on a wide field of view, some around 90 at the minute, which helps with that visible recoil, and I'll actually be altering my settings further and learning how to aim in a different fashion over the coming weeks to further improve this with the Lewis gun and indeed every other gun in the game, so keep your eyes peeled for that, and maybe also look out for if I do a video detailing it and how you can do the same. Now the Lewis gun fires at 540 rounds per minute and can have either a 47 or 97 round magazine. I usually pick the 47 round mag so I can have better horizontal recoil, but choose whichever you personally prefer. They both have their own value. Now I guess I probably don't need to say too much more about this. By this point you probably all know the Lewis gun is very popular and very effective in the right hands, but that doesn't stop it from being a top tier choice. Something I must admit I didn't always appreciate. It brings back what I expect of an LMG from things like BF1 for example, whereas most LMGs in BF5 have a lower magazine capacity and actually tend to be designed for ranges that I don't normally associate with LMGs or just don't fulfill the role very well because they have that smaller mag, and also semi-auto rifles just dominate at mid-range anyway. And so with all that in mind, that is why the Lewis gun is my best support weapon in BF5 in mid-2020, because it actually fulfills a purpose you can't get from the other classes. And so now we come to the recon class, and I've gone for the perhaps surprising Model 8, basically because of its ability to two-shot kill people to the body at 225 rounds per minute if you use trigger job out to 50 meters, which can be absolutely devastating. It's super lethal, people really don't expect it, and I believe, don't quote me here, but I think from my logic, that's the fastest two-shot kill to the body in the entire game, at least for some kind of semi-auto weapon. And so yes, this has done away with my beloved ZH29 for now because of what I referenced earlier. These semi-auto rifles of the assault class are just so good at this point that it feels like a straight up nerf to my abilities most of the time that I try to use recon. It's just kind of like a why bother sort of thing, especially on console, as another one of the standout reasons to use recon is the bolt action rifles, but hitting headshots with those is that much harder and more limiting with a controller than running and gunning with a semi-auto rifle from assault and just spamming people to the body. And so I was tempted to just not cover recon this time, but I did eventually settle on the Model 8 due to that extreme lethality within 50 meters, so it does provide an actual purpose you can't get again from the other classes, kinda like the Lewis gun, but in a very different way. Now that bullet to kill value does change to 3 outside of 50 meters, so I do challenge people far less often at that kind of range, and that's the balance now. Unfortunately for range play, I'm now simply more likely to select assault than recon unless I do actually decide to snipe. As you saw earlier, the Carabin with a 3-shot body shot at 300 rounds per minute with barely any recoil, well, even though I've used the ZH29 a lot in this game and I've got pretty good with it, it's just easier to use the Carabin, and I hope that really rams home the value of the Model 8 now. So you're going to get 8 rounds per reload, and I recommend using quick aim and light and stock to play into that aggressive recon role that the gun shines for. And that's about it really. That's why begrudgingly it's my top recon gun in BF5 in mid-2020. And so that's my list. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It is extremely helpful, or a dislike if you didn't like it. Maybe subscribe if you're new and turn on notifications to properly stay up to date. I do release a lot of Battlefield content even now, and all the links to my social media including Patreon can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here is the Board of Awesome for the epic people who already support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes and I love them all deeply and of course often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters. So if that does come to the game, at least it's another thing to add to the list of new things to do. Does that really sound like enough on its own to keep people playing for the long term? And I mean like genuine long term. I would argue no for the majority, but I doubt that's really the intention at this point, to keep mass amounts of players playing all the way through to the next BF